realize until recently, but of all the greenhouse gas emissions, about 31% globally come from agriculture. Only 26 or 27% come from the energy industry, 31%. So we have a challenge of increasing productivity while reducing greenhouse gas emissions in order to maintain our expectations of keeping climate change in check. I'd also say that genetics is there to replace the chemicals that need to be removed in order to maintain sustainability. Now, we talked about the first green revolution of the 70s that Norman Borlaug and the people that we praise so much gave us this ability to be here today. The second green revolution began about 15 years ago with the new genetics. And that new genetics includes biotechnology, the marker-assisted breeding, the genetic engineering. That began about 15 years ago. The next generation of that second wave of the second green revolution will include genetic engineering as well as synthetic biology, the engineering which changes the synthetic pathways of plants and microbes and algae to create the things that we need in the biomaterials and the biofuels and better foods. That will be included in agriculture, in aquaculture, and in agroforestry.
Excuse me, Dr. Beachy, can I ask you to round up?
Yes, you can ask, but I don't have to, do I?
Yes, you have to.
I was stymied by this thing. Okay, I'm just kidding. I know where the power, she has the power. The third green revolution will be a reduction in food losses or waste. That's a third green revolution that will make more food available. In some places, 40% of the food is lost to waste. And all of this will give us new innovations and new opportunities for the kind of economies that will come from nature. It's going to be based on science. It will drive the second and third generations. The early adopters will have the advantage in the marketplace. If you're too late, you'll lose the market. Indonesia is not in the market. And the question is, will Indonesia get into the market, and will you be part of the solution or not? And here's the thing, excessive and unwarranted regulations need to be sort of managed and eliminated as much as possible. And I think that's the challenge that we have in the U.S., and I think you have it here as well. This still isn't working, so don't blame me. Yeah, so
everything is important, but we have a lot more to come. That's
when science, here's the key here, is when science-based decision-making is subverted due to political indecisions or inaction, food security and the new agriculture will suffer. And there's that balance between how much regulation or how much policy is there and how much science is there. So my last... Yeah, okay. This is going to take better collaboration. I hope there still are some students here, because this is where you are. We need different kind of students in agriculture. Who are the next agriculturists? They're not just the farmers and technologists, but in fact they are.
He's buying time.
Well, the chemists, the physicists, the mathematicians, and at the end of the time, if we do this right, this is the old agriculture. An old agriculture that was succumbing to the biotic stresses of nature, and genetic engineering, which gives you a cleaner ear of corn. Now, you could say that's the rich man's way of doing things, but that same technology works extremely well on crops like cassava. And the reason I end with this is because this is what I helped to invent about 25 years ago. This is a cassava plant that's full of disease. And a single genetic engineering, taking less than a year and a half, will develop varieties that are fully resistant to that virus disease and be fully productive. Unless we adopt the new science as it comes along, we won't have food security, and we certainly won't have that new economy that's based on the knowledge that requires this. Thank you very much. Boy, this thing doesn't...
Thank you, Dr. Beachy. I just thought of a great invention. We should put this huge alarm clock here, and it would ring after 50 minutes.
No, you need a stick.
Thank you very much. I hope everyone is still happy in their time machines. This is a marathon that we're running in our little time machine, so keep hanging in there. We have a few more things to come, and our third speaker on this session is Professor Thomas Vingar. I want to invite him on the stage. He's a Payne Distinguished Lecturer at Stanford University at the Institute for International Studies, and his main area is intelligence. He was the chairman of the National Intelligence Council until 2008. Professor Vingar.
It's been a long day, and I commend everybody for their attention. I commend Gita and Dino for putting this together. My topic is geopolitics. We've heard throughout the afternoon references, most specifically in Bob Kaplan here a moment ago. Geopolitics is the study of the way nations and other international entities interact with one another. It's the context within which technology and scientific developments can be discovered, can be applied. It sets the context for investment, trade flows. It is all about power and influence, interests and identity, and fundamentally it's about issues. Some elements of it don't change. Where nations are located in reference to one another doesn't change from year to year, century to century. Politics can change very quickly. A couple of examples I think will make that point. The demise of the Soviet Union, the advent of democracy in Indonesia, the Arab Spring, not predicted with precision, but had a tremendously important impact and continue to. So in one sense, geopolitics doesn't change very much. It's a constant. But the way in which events play out, culture and history are perceived and applied, comes down to decisions made by individuals and institutions all around the globe in an increasingly interdependent world. Some of you may have expected that as the last of the formal speakers, I was going to bring it together and give you the definitive futurologist view on which countries are going to be up and which countries are going to be down and where Indonesia fits into that. I'm not going to do that because I don't know. And among the reasons I do not know is that that's going to depend 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now on decisions that haven't been made yet. Decisions made here. Decisions made in boardrooms a lot to adopt new techniques. And there's the darker side of envy and jealousy and alienation, incentives and potential for mobilization for extremist activities. Shift to demography. Certainly haven't dispensed with the nature of the system, but demography. What will it look like in 2025? Well, according to World Bank, there'll be about 1 billion more people than there are today. Once upon a time, the idea of 1 billion more people in 15 years was pretty astonishing. Now, we've said that, several of us have mentioned it during the day. We're going to have 1 billion more people. As if coping with that, creating jobs, education, finding housing, transportation, food, clean water. All of that is, we can do that. We probably can. It's terrific that we are so optimistic about doing all of this. If we weren't optimistic, we surely couldn't deal with it. But 1 billion more people. But that 1 billion more people are not going to be evenly distributed. Only 3% of that billion are going to be in the OECD nations, or the West plus Japan and South Korea, what used to be referred to as the West, the rich man's club. 3% of that growth is in the wealthy world. Most of the rest of that growth is in 2 countries, India and China. Even for those big countries, that's a big absorptive challenge. India and China account for the vast majority of people lifted out of poverty in the last 3 decades. Lifted out of poverty means going from $1 a day to $2 a day. So the sheer numbers are a factor. Most of the rest of that population increase, if one looked at a map, is in what is often called the arcs of instability that run from North Africa through the Middle East to South Asia and Central Asia and through Central America. Areas that already are straining with youth bulges, are straining to meet nutritional requirements, are straining to meet increasing demands from the public. Gita mentioned the demographic dividend for Indonesia. But that changing pattern, and demography is about as predictable as social science gets. We know how many people are going to be born. We know what the numbers are because most are already born. And 2 phenomena are worth noting here. One is the graying of Northeast Asia and Southern Europe. Not only are they below replacement levels in population growth, they're aging. Older people have different health needs. As Jamie, I think it was pointed out this morning, that will drive search for new technologies and new techniques to deal with this, as well as prolonging and improving the life of everybody. Old people have political clout. They get attention in almost every political system. The other end are young people, youth bulges, youth who now are connected to people all over the country, all over the world, want things, make demand for education, jobs, opportunity, things that governments are increasingly expected to help provide. It's not a family affair. It's not sort of the impersonal economy. Governments are expected to do this. And youth everywhere have certain things in common, one of which is they're not patient. They're not interested in what the government did for grandma. It's what are you doing for me now? And that is healthy and that is wonderful. But it puts increasing pressure on governments to provide. These generational imbalances, in conjunction with other developments, economic, resulting climate change, perceived opportunities, is going to lead to migration. People are going to move. They'll move to where they see more opportunities. Young people moving to countries that have old people and jobs that they can't fill in order to support the social state. But much of the world has had a pretty close identification of